10 keys to creating and maintaining excellent health using proven self-care methods that most physicians don't know. Anybody in this audience follow Doug Coughlin? I don't have a doctor. I'll be 73 years old. The book, No Doctors Required, is a must with capital M, must read. Larry Trivieri joins us right now. He is the author. Larry, people send me books all the time, and I look at them, and I don't peruse them. You go through chapter 1, 3, 5, and 10, and you kind of have basic knowledge. I could not put this book down. No Doctors Required. First, I want you to define what that headline, what the book title means.
Well, it's very simple. It means learn how to take control of your health without having to depend on a doctor. And that's becoming more and more important because doctors simply don't have time to meet the needs of our healthcare crisis. You know, 70 or 8, I think it's actually up to 85% of our nation suffers from at least one chronic disease, which means that they're not being able to reverse it by their doctors. So they're dependent on, okay, symptom care. Here's this drug, here's this drug. Oh, you got a side effect, here's take this drug on top of it. That's not health. And most doctors, unfortunately, because they're victims of the system of what controls their medical school education, they don't know these 10 keys for the most part. Or if they do, that's like window dressing. It's not emphasized.
And there's bliss in that ignorance. Look, there are pharmaceutical companies sitting around just wagging their tail, watching the number of prescriptions that are written by the by.
The pharmaceutical industry loves it. They dominate our healthcare system. They dominate Congress. But it's not bliss for the doctors, truthfully. No. I have a lot of sympathy for the doctors. They're victims of their education. Doctors today are under a tremendous amount of stress, a lot of frustration, and they really are looking for solutions that don't exist in the conventional medical school education.
Let me name a few of them. You interviewed Joe Mercola, a friend of mine. You interviewed Stephen Sinatra, a prominent cardiologist, another prominent cardiologist, Dr. Lee Cowden, Zach Bush. I mean, the names, Norm Shealy, the names in this book, number one, well done. You took tidbits from each of them. And Larry, let me just tell you how frustrating it is for me to read when the Center for Disease Control says that maybe up to half, a third to a half, of our antibiotics aren't even needed. And then it's like a collective yawn. Well, we're going to keep it up. It's sure making money. I mean, this is so frustrating to me. Teach me, Larry, teach this audience what I know I've had to learn through the past 50 years, what you learned. Number one, how old are you and when did you get it that you had to change?
I'm 66. I've always been kind of a person who takes responsibility for himself. I've always been predominantly healthy too. But in 1992 is when my career really started. I created the book Alternative Medicine Definitive Guide with my mentor and friend Burton Goldberg. And as a result of that, for about 2.5 years, I had a really intense education by meeting all these various doctors, including the ones that you just mentioned, and learning what they were doing and how different it was from what the doctors that I knew of, the conventional doctors, were doing. And it opened my eyes tremendously. And all of them emphasize prevention and self-care. So it's not about, oh, I'm sick, what do I need to do to get healthy? That's not what this book is about. This book is about do this and you won't get sick in the first place. And the best part, you can do it on your own once you learn the keys. So I distill out everything that I've learned over the last 30 or so years to 10 essential keys, which starts with knowing your current health status, and there are various ways to do that, including medical tests that many doctors ignore. For instance, one of the biggest causes of all illness is inflammation. One of the biggest markers to test that is very inexpensive, costs about $35, is what's called an HSC reactive protein test. That can measure whether or not your body is in a state of systemic low-grade inflammation. If it is, you got problems. You're setting the stage for disease. Most doctors never order this. And so there's a whole list in chapter 1 that goes into the various tests that you can order, and you don't necessarily even need a physician to order them. There are plenty of places around the country now, very legitimate labs, that will allow you to order the test on your own. And I have a list of all of them in the reference section.
I know, you turned over so I had a question about water. You know, what kind of water? For years, I juiced. Now I know why. What is BUN and creatinine? Blood, urea, nitrogen? What, folks, to the layperson, this is all new. This book highlights all of that. Tell me how much vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, do I need? And as a matter of fact, I concur with him in this book. Last night, probably 8 o'clock, I got a problem with calcium. I got a problem with taking iron supplements. Guess what 2 of his be carefuls are? Larry, you've hit the nail on the head. In the interest of brevity, let me zoom forward. Then you and I, well, let me just tell you, on my 70th birthday, I got a cold. I ate myself. My son and his wife came out from California. They had cupcakes. I don't eat cupcakes, but on the drive out to Austin, about 4 hours, I had a couple of cupcakes. Man, were they good. Didn't feel good. And did, you know, just, I was not on my diet. And I got sick and I got the flu. And I was so sick I had to get in a bathtub at the hotel, and I was shivering and shaking, and I thought, wow, this is a bad flu. 2 months later, I realized I had what they call COVID. Tell me a little about, I now have passive active immunity. I have active immunity. I made antibodies to COVID. I didn't get the shot, so I don't have passive immunity. But active immunity trumps passive immunity every time for those of you who have gotten the disease and now have protection. Tell me where your heart is on this controversy that's come up the last few years.
Well, where my heart is really informing people that there's been a lot of fear mongering, a tremendous amount of fear mongering. I think it's intentional. There's been a lot of misinformation by quote unquote the health experts. And there's been a lot of censorship of doctors who were truly in the trenches at the beginning of the COVID outbreak that were helping their patients in hospitals who have now been denied privileges to even be in the hospitals because they were going against the quote unquote accepted wisdom of the Anthony Fauci's and the Rachel Walensky's and people like that, all of whom work in agencies, government agencies that have been captured by the pharmaceutical industry. And this isn't new. This goes back decades and decades and decades. So that's the first step. The other thing is they made COVID seem like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. This can kill all of us. I mean, that's why we had the lockdowns in the first place. The hospitals were going to be overrun, this, that, and the other thing. It wasn't true. The survival rate overall is 99+%, okay? Yes, the symptoms are bad. I know people that have had very serious symptoms. They all got over it, whether they were vaccinated or unvaccinated. I personally am not vaccinated. I never feared it. And because of all the things that I've learned over the years, I knew, and that's what this book shares, I knew the things I needed to be doing in order to optimize and maintain my health. That's why I wrote this book. And I also chose to self-publish it so that I would have complete control editorially of what went into it as opposed to a traditional publisher. And I've published many books with traditional publishers. I've written or co-written over 30 books. But I wanted full control over the information that had to be shared without minimizing anything.
In the minute we, and excuse me for busting in here,
Sure.
In the minute we have left, you were exposed to COVID just a few months ago, bad COVID. Mom got COVID, 89 years old, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us what you think healed Mom.
Well, I'm pretty sure what healed Mom was her faith and prayer, and also the vitamin D supplements that I gave her, which is the only thing I was allowed to give her. But I'm also certain that the reason I didn't get it was because of my own faith that I wouldn't get it. You know, I was there to serve my mother. I was in that, it was kind of a COVID hot zone for over 4 weeks. There was, you know, most of the patients had it, a lot of the staff had it. And I was there every day for between 1 and 2 hours, yeah, you know, making sure my mother was getting the care. So the spiritual connection that I've developed over the years, and when you have faith in God, you basically can't fear. They're the antithesis of each other. If you're fearful of something, you've lost your connection with the divine. Once you put your attention back on your heart and prayer, contemplation, going out in nature, whatever brings you a connection to a higher power, studies show this. It automatically boosts your immune system.
Yeah, and Larry, worst case scenario, I'm going home. I'm going home. The book it's a compendium of brilliance. Larry, you've done it. No doctors required. It's $19.95, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstores, etc. Or if you've got a Kindle, it's half that price. This is the cheapest education. Here's why I love it, Larry. Buy it for yourself. It's a 1-day read, 2-day read. It's intense. Then give it to someone who is sick that you love. Watch over the weeks and months the changes instructed in this book. Watch them feel better and better and better, and begin dropping off, hopefully, some medication, maybe some doctors. I love your approach here. And this is, look, if you need an antibiotic or an antidepressant, get it. If you need surgery, get it. But then change may be in order. Really, wasn't that what it was all about?
That is what it's all about. And primarily, if you implement the steps and the keys in this book, ideally, you won't get sick in the first place. That's why I wrote this book, was to prevent illness and optimize health, well-being, and just overall joy, really, because if you have your health, you're going to be a lot more joyful than if you don't have your health.
And you are. I mean, Larry Trivieri, folks, wrote a book. It's a must. You got to have it. You know, you look at a $20 book and you think, okay, that's 3 gallons of gas. I mean, it's amazing the education that you'll get in this book. God bless you. It's a tremendous read. Really appreciate it, Larry. Thank you for being on with us.
Appreciate you, Doug. Thank you very much.
Continued success, man. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.